Worn out by battles over hydro and devastated by the loss of his wife, Sir Adam Beck checked into Baltimore's Johns Hopkins Hospital in early 1925. He returned home that spring. "I am finished," he told his staff. He died at his North London estate on August 15th of pernicious anemia. 1 year later, scientists discovered a cure.
The funeral was a massive event. Of course, here was Beck, the revered politician, the revered mayor of London, the founder of public power. And precisely at noon hour, all power in the city was shut down in a moment of silence in honor of Adam Beck.
At the service, London's mayor, who had once refused to bow in Beck's presence, scandalized himself by dressing down in tan shoes and a straw hat.
They went nuts, wild. And all that he said to them. It was his hat, it was paid for, and it fit him. And every election that came up for years, whether Daddy won or lost the election. "Where's your straw hat, George?" Because Daddy loved it when everybody called him George.
Born in Detroit, George Wenige first arrived in London as a trick bicycle rider at the turn of the century. He stayed on to found the area's largest bicycle dealership, boasting he was the man who made walking expensive.
George Wenige, and I can't tell you what year this was, rode a bicycle from London to Halifax and back again. Now, that was quite a stunt because in those days there were no paved roads. And George Wenige had to pedal a bicycle on a gravel road for about 1,500 or 1,800 miles from London to Halifax and back again. Now when I say back again, I'm not really positive about that. He had to get back here some way because I saw him in London.
There was no good or bad advertising for George Wenige, just advertising. He taught his 2-year-old son to ride a bike and then forced the child to pose for publicity photos. As a stunt, he once ordered a contractor to build his new store in a record 30 days. To make sure the deadline was met, he hired a brass band to motivate the construction workers.
He always said, "I don't care what you do, say about me, as long as you say something." And quite often he wasn't impressed with what I did because it was a slam on this or a slam on that. And I spent a lot of time doing local cartoons when he was mayor, and his color was the factor, I think.
First elected mayor for 1923, Wenige brought his populist vision to the public office. He claimed to have views on every subject and never hesitated to express them. When the London Street Railway fell into debt, he stunned council by recommending the city found a rival bus system at a staggering cost of $8 million. He once campaigned on the promise to re-establish civic bingo games, forgetting that they were illegal. When elected, he instituted them anyway.
The newspaper had painted George Wenige as a rather nasty, uneducated, uncooperative person, but I found that his main interest was in doing things for the public of London, and that he was more interested in the underdog than he was in anything else.
Common men and women always had the final say on Wenige, whether he was breaking up a Port Stanley bootlegging operation or introducing citywide garbage collection. Out of 18 runs for the mayor's office, George Wenige would be elected 9 times. No London politician has ever come close to matching his stamina at campaigning. The 1929 edition of the Western Fair featured California Frank's Rodeo and the Les Eldon Acrobats. Labor Minister Peter Heenan, who opened the festivities under perfect skies, told Londoners that Canada had reached the point where it could develop without the fear of unemployment. The next month, the stock market crashed. London investors alone lost $10 million. Guy Lombardo, who had just opened at New York's Roosevelt Grill, saw his portfolio drop by $60,000 in a single day. An overextended North American economy was collapsing. The effect on London was instantaneous. 1929 graduates found it hard to find jobs. By April of 1930, the number of help-wanted ads in the Free Press was off by more than 40%. Businesses that had been part of the city for generations closed forever. Carling Breweries transferred its operations to Toronto. The London Advertiser, the city's liberal newspaper, shut its doors. Openings at London's remaining industries were at a premium.
There was a period in the Depression when I think things were very tough for my father financially. I know he made gloves. He made leather gloves for sale, which is not exactly his job. And my mother sold artificial flowers, which is not exactly her job.
Government projects like the Dominion Public Building did offer workers a temporary refuge from the Depression. But by March of 1933, the city was forced to cut single men off relief, forcing them to turn to soup kitchens and private welfare agencies. Others were sent off to work camps or told to shovel snow from area roads. In April of 1937, the city hit bottom when the Thames River flooded, leaving over 5,000 Londoners homeless. Not even a radio address from the tireless George Wenig could cheer people up.
We always remember the way he said to the citizenry, keep calm, keep calm. And I haven't heard that kind of rural pronunciation since John Diefenbaker.
But for people lucky enough to have a job and money, the 1930s were a good time. Members of London's Hunt Club still enjoyed golf on the university grounds or their annual Thanksgiving Day fox hunt. In the era of the gentleman sports star, no one represented the well-to-do better than Sandy Somerville. The son of a London box manufacturer, Somerville excelled at football, cricket, and hockey. But golf became his first love. In September of 1932, Somerville surprised the experts by making it to the finals of the U.S. Amateur in Baltimore. In the 36-hole championship round, Silent Sandy played the golf match of his life against Johnny Goodman of Nebraska.
He beat Goodman 2-1, and he said that was the end of a very satisfactory day. It's in the middle of the Depression, and here's a local hero that sort of revived the community to some degree. Mayor Hayman presented Sandy a gold key to the city, and he was given the freedom of the city of London. And Mayor Hayman said to Sandy, is there anything else that we could give you? And Sandy said, I'd like the school children to have a half day off.
Before his professional golfing career ended, Somerville won 12 more titles and would play as a semi-finalist in the 1938 British Amateur. For his accomplishments, Somerville would be honored as the Canadian golfer for the first half of the 20th century. Londoners who couldn't afford to tour with Somerville could use one of the new paved highways to Port Stanley. During the 1930s, the Lake Erie Resort was touted as the Coney Island of Western Ontario, attracting 2 million visitors a year. Dance palaces like the Casino and the Pavilion attracted the bands of Benny Goodman, Glenn Miller, and Woody Herman. Guy Lombardo, who fronted the top sweet band in America, counted trumpeter Louis Armstrong as one of his biggest fans. You can't find another band that can play a straight lead and make it sound that good, Armstrong tells his friends. But the most famous visitors of all came in June of 1939. King George and Queen Elizabeth arrived in London as part of their North American tour. It was the first visit by a reigning monarch in the city's history, and it all flew by in less than an hour. Members of a local motorcycle club had eagerly joined the militia so they could serve as escorts for the royal couple. One of them was Ralph Yull, who had just married.
We were so much more closely involved with, I say we, but I think Canadians generally felt more closely attached to Britain. I mean, we were British. Our passports were British passports at that time.